Welcome to Adam's Den.
Today I wanted to talk to you about something that is a little disturbing, but I wanted to talk about it in a way that can be a positive way or a more constructive way. And I wanted to ask everybody for help, to be honest, but I'll get to that point in a little while. The point of this video is to look at the future and see what we can do better in terms of our entertainment, and not just that, just art in general. And we're going to go a little broader than just art. This is going to start making sense in a little while. But as it isn't that unusual on this channel, if you go back to my first Food for Thought videos, you'll notice, actually the very first one was a Food for Thought video, giving everybody a glimpse of what my dinner with Andre, how much of it is still going on today. I mean, this is a movie that came out in the 80s, but anyway, if you want, just take a look at that video. This one is actually sparked by another movie, well, not movie, a documentary that just came out. It's a series, which I think is the best way to put it, and it's this one right here. Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. I am not unfamiliar with this topic, and I'll let you know why in just a little bit. I know I'm postponing these things because there's a logic to this, and there's a way of going about this, and I hope I can go about this in the most constructive way possible. But I knew that this was coming out a few weeks ago, and I just watched the whole thing, or at least everything that's available so far. And yes, it is a very dark side of kids' television, and it also sheds a light on how important it is for parents to be on top of what their children are consuming in this multimedia landscape that we have these days, where kids can just take a phone out of their pockets and access pretty much anything. It also is a dark way of pointing out a positive need, to something that we need to bring back, which is parents' involvement in their children's education. We had a glimpse of this in the last few years with everything that was going on in schools around the world, not just in the United States, but this is actually a phenomenon that then spread across the world, at least to the Western world. And when parents didn't really have an idea, or they realized that they weren't really aware of what was being told to their kids in schools, the necessity arose for parents to step up and be more involved. And I think this is another one of those times. This is nothing new, but it is important to keep shedding a light on it. For that purpose, before we even go into it any further, I'd like to talk a little bit about this movie, about this documentary, I should say. And there's a lot of information out there that you can look on your own, and you feel free to do it, and let me know in the comments what you find. But there's a lot to go into here, and there's a lot of material that is exposed in this documentary series that is quite disturbing, as I said, so you watch at your own discretion. But better than having me tell you about this, let's just watch the trailer first, and then we can talk a little bit more about it.
In the early 90s, Nickelodeon was kid everything. And you better hope that your house had cable.
Wasn't there to educate you. We were there to have fun, to get slimed, to be entertained.
And this is when Dan Schneider arrives, Nickelodeon's golden boy. He created these shows that were hugely successful for them.
No one had ever really done sketch comedy starring kids for kids.
He launched the careers of child actors who became major stars.
For 20 years, he shaped children's entertainment and culture.
Hey, thank you for being here.
But that marked one of the darkest chapters. Working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship.
Dan's treatment of people on his shows was an open secret.
So my lawyer filed complaints, gender discrimination, hostile work environment, harassment, and it was so devastating.
How safe can any kids be in that environment? There would be even bigger problems down the line with actual pedophiles on set.
These are 3 predators who worked at Nickelodeon, all in a short amount of time.
Hey guys, we're ready for you. It was a toxic environment. It made me trust people less.
We were there for so many hours. You get comfortable with people until you're not.
I had no idea what I was saving my son from. It's a house of horrors.
They find this enormous trove of child pornography.
The officer said we found Ziploc bags, each one with a girl's name on it.
11 charges of child sexual abuse related to a child actor.
It made me wonder who was being hurt.
I've been waiting 17 years for today.
It wasn't dealing with anybody on the shows or anything, right?
It was a child actor.
On one of our shows.
Yes. Have you ever told your story publicly before?
All right, so yeah, it is. Oh, wait a minute. What the hell? Why did he? Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty disturbing, and again, viewer discretion. I would suggest not watching this with your kids, unless they're of age or at least mature enough to understand what's going on. Because something that this series talks about a lot, and I think it's good that they shed so much light on it. Is even though we as parents or as adults growing up in the 80s, 90s, whatever, we did hear about these stories in the backdrop, right? It was just something, we were aware that these are things that might happen, but something that this documentary does really well is shed a light on how wrong it is to think that in this industry specifically, this is not going to happen to me. I don't need to be that involved. Yes, you do. Yes, we do. This is a pretty big stain on a very beloved industry. And I know that nowadays people don't love this industry as much as they used to, and that's honestly a good thing. And this is coming from someone who looked up to Hollywood as a role model of sorts. It taught me so many things, and my friends as well. Every fan of what Hollywood produces, everybody who grew up with these great larger-than-life adventures. We grew up with these role models, these heroes, and they, in a way that didn't, at least I'm going to speak for myself now, they did not replace the role of my parents, but they did enlighten me in ways that my parents could not. And it made you think about the world in a different way. It made you grow up to be this person who was at least a little bit aware of other things that are going on around the world, even if it's in a fictional setting. Fiction is, as you know, always based in something that is true. So it kind of, it helped you build a personality that is a little more all-encompassing, a little richer. So yes, we looked up to this industry as not only a place to be entertained, but also educated and becoming, hopefully, a better person. This right here, this horrible thing that this series depicts, is an eye-opener for anybody who still thinks that this is something that happens way, it's a far-fetched thing that happens way in the backdrop. It's not even something to consider or to worry about. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It made a bit of a splash. I mean, all of the articles, it came out a week ago, and all of the articles that have already been issued, there are quite a lot of it, so quite a lot of them. So yes, it made a bit of a splash, and I hope that it keeps making a splash. I hope that it raises more inquiries. I'm just showing you now different search engines that I use, and in all of them, the first one was Google, but this is Quant, and other search engines as well. There are a lot of articles here. There are a lot of articles being issued and published about this topic, and I hope it continues. And I hope these investigations do not stop. This is a major, major scandal. Corey Feldman, if you don't know who Corey Feldman is, Corey Haim was another one. We'll get to that in a minute. Corey Feldman has been talking about this for so many years. So many years. I just watched The Burbs. Funny, I just watched The Burbs a couple of nights ago, and I mean, he's been in a lot. Goonies, The Lost Boys, Stand By Me, The Burbs. These are just the four that appear here. Instant classics. if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you know who Corey Feldman is, and he's been raising awareness about this issue for quite a long time. And he's been ridiculed, marginalized, and he didn't stop. And his friend, Corey Haim, who was also in The Lost Boys, by the way, took his own life. I think it says here, he died suddenly on March 10th. As far as I'm aware, he took his own life. And it's, as Corey Feldman says, it's all because of this dark side of Hollywood that takes advantage of these, in this case, took advantage of these children in the 80s and child stars. And I mean, you got to remember that this was a different place back then. The world was very different. You didn't have access to information as you do now, and so it was just, this is just a horrible thing that a lot of too many children. This was pervasive, and thank you for anybody involved with this production. It does shed a light on a very, very dark issue that we need to address. I want to address it because I still think that it is possible, and this is what I want to talk about. It is possible to have that old Hollywood back. And I know what you're going to say. I know that you're going to say, oh, Hollywood was never that good to begin with. I understand where you're coming from. I understand that there's all sorts of media manipulation that Hollywood enables. And this is nothing new. This is something that's been going on for decades and decades. So yes, I know what you mean. But we did grow up with this idea that Hollywood was a magical place. And this is what I mean. I trust that we can together build this great Hollywood we believed existed, at least impervious to this awful bullshit, man. I don't know how else to put it. This is just such a horrible thing that is allowed to happen in Hollywood, allegedly. When I say allegedly, I mean the allowed part, not that it doesn't happen. This happens, and it's been happening far too often and for far too long. And there's a part of this that seems to be allowed, and that's the most horrible part, I would say, that not only is it horrible that it's happening, but that it's allowed. And it hints at this intricate web of blackmail in the industry. And I'll show you what I mean. I mean, the first documentary that I saw that was really well put together was this one, An Open Secret. It's been out for a few years now. You can see, 10 years now. So 2014 it was released. It didn't have, not in the slightest, the amount of impact that Quiet on Set has right now. It was kind of fell off the radar for most people, but I want to play this trailer as well because this is not a new thing. This has been going on for far too goddamn long, and something needs to be done, goddammit. And I'm getting animated because, again, I love what this industry can do. I grew up on it, as so many of my friends did. And to see that this shit is not only something that used to happen in the past, but is happening right now. It just pisses me off because we could have something magical without all this bullshit. And that's what I want to talk to everybody about, is the idea of us creating together a new Hollywood. Let's put a pause on that idea for now and let's watch the trailer, because this is important for us to watch and know that this fucking thing is happening and there's something that needs to be done about it. And these movies and documentaries and TV series, they not only shed a light, but they're a cry for anybody that can do anything about it to step forward. God damn it. All right, here's the trailer for An Open Secret.
I think every little kid dreams about being famous and being in movies.
This is California. This is where you make it. This is where it all starts.
You'll get signed by a label. You can star on Disney Channel. You know, what kid wouldn't want that, right?
I remember you asked me if I ever did anything with the guy before. I was not interested at 12.
You're not recording this, right?
Looks like an angel.
Hollywood doesn't have any system in place to protect anybody, and children are way down on that list.
Children need management just like everybody else.
Walk like an angel.
Everybody liked him.
He became part of the family. In the beginning, it was happy, and then things started changing.
You talk like an angel.
They pick on people who they know will be victims.
You have an adult who is manipulating the child.
Just getting, hired on the spot like that had never happened before. It was obvious that something was going on.
The party made me feel uncomfortable. There were lots of drugs available, and there were young teenage boys.
I remember being scared.
He just told me this is what you have to do.
A number of boys told me to point the gun at them just like that.
He said, "Do you not understand the power I have?"
You're the devil in disguise.
I remember sitting in my room and crying my eyes out.
He said, "What would you do? That happened to me."
A lot of investors completely denied that anything was going on.
Clearly, the studio didn't want an investigation.
I hated when you tried to have me sleep in your bed and touch me.
I don't know anything about that.
There will always be a steady stream of kids who want to be famous.
We're absolutely talking about the tip of an iceberg.
It wasn't uncommon, let's put it that way.
So yeah, it was normal, right? It's normal back then, or in this industry. It's normal. And the idea that there's something that is really impactful in the beginning of Quiet on Set, and I'm glad that they had the foresight to do this, which is in the very beginning of each episode, you will have this disclaimer. I think you can call it a disclaimer, viewer discretion advised and all of that, but it says, it talks about the children being abused by the adults that were supposed to protect them. That's an idea that's also mentioned in An Open Secret throughout, I would say. Maybe An Open Secret didn't make that much of a splash because it talks about actors that child actors that didn't end up becoming as famous as the ones in Quiet on Set, but still, this is pervasive, and it needs to stop. I don't know how we can go about this. Other than shedding a light and hoping that law enforcement does its job efficiently enough to put these people behind bars. Otherwise, I don't know exactly what we can do except shedding a light on it. And I hope that I know I have a small channel. I know that there's only a handful of people that are listening, but that just makes it all the more important. Please, if you're listening to this, share this video and share the links to where people can watch Quiet on Set and also An Open Secret. Especially if you're a parent of a child who has talent, because these children, they do have talent. Corey Feldman was one of the best actors in the 80s, or at least one of the most famous ones, and he was a child actor. But these things happened then, and they're still happening now, and these people are talented. These kids, they have something to give, and it's because of that, of their belief and their parents' belief that they can do something great with their talent, they get into this industry, and then they're abused by the people that are supposed to guide them. So anyway, I don't mean to be animated throughout the entire video, and I'm going to try and, again, approach this in a constructive, positive way. Not this thing, but what we can do about it in a constructive, positive way. This is just... Listen, I grew up with these movies. A lot of the things that... Not Nickelodeon. I never watched Nickelodeon. It's not my thing. But a lot of the entertainment that these documentaries talk about, I grew up with it. One thing that An Open Secret does and A Quiet on Set does not is talk about this guy. This is a name that keeps popping up, right? In An Open Secret. This is a name that keeps popping up. I don't want to... As far as I know, they're just allegations, nothing more. He wasn't convicted, he wasn't... Because we don't know if it is true or not, and there's due process. Hopefully, there's due process. And it's something that is too bad, too horrible to just throw about as if it was true when it wasn't, and it can destroy someone's life. Even if you go to court and you are proved innocent, this can destroy a person's life. But it does raise a lot of questions, right? And one of my favorite movies of all time was directed by this guy. You know, this one came out in 95. I was a teenager in 95. And I watched this movie so many times. I just showed it to my girlfriend not that long ago, and she was blown away by it. As you would, because this is a wonderful movie. But anyway, it's not just this movie, because it's not this one actor right here. or the director who's been accused, at least, of allegedly doing things, is also producers. How many of us know Harvey Weinstein by now? Producers used to be a thing. If you watch the movie Wag the Dog, Dustin Hoffman makes a point of mentioning there that, oh, you have Oscars for everything in that, for every category except producing. But they do a lot. And so Harvey Weinstein is now associated with a lot of stuff that we all love. And we all know what this guy did. And isn't it fun that they should have a picture here with the top of the list person that does these things? Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't it fucking great that the two of them are in one picture here on IMDb? I mean, this is pervasive because this is not just in the entertainment industry. It's not just Harvey Weinstein. It goes into politics as well. Here's another one that I loved. I mean, his work that I loved, and Roman Polanski. He's done some of the greatest movies ever. And then, obviously, Kevin Spacey. If you've been following this whole thing, you know what's going on there. So I don't need to tell you all about it. You can just research it on yourself. But I think it's kind of coincidental that when you were accused, you come out and say, "Oh, I've been living as a gay man." But this used to be one of my favorite actors. Again, you can separate the person from what they're doing. You can. It is possible that you can enjoy the great movies that you once loved without being constantly reminded of this, because the movies are great in themselves. The problem isn't the movies that are made. The problem is what's going on in the backstage and in dark areas of Hollywood. That is what needs to stop. That's why it's so important to keep shedding a light on this, like Quiet on Set and An Open Secret do. Here's another one. I used to love The Cosby Show, but yeah, there you go. Jesus Christ. Even Jeffrey Jones, man. Jeffrey Jones, he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of my favorite movies of all time. He was in Amadeus, for crying out loud. Howard the Duck, Ed Wood, he's so great in Ed Wood. If you haven't watched it, please go ahead and watch it. There are always going to be bad people everywhere, but it pains me that this industry not only has so many of them, it's kind of a beacon to people like this. When I talked earlier about the intricate web of blackmail going on, it's because it's not just this. It's not just entertainment. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just involved in this. He was involved in politics. Bill Clinton, 20-something trips to Lolita Island. Come on. I'm talking about the Clintons. Remember when Hillary Clinton was running for office and this guy was in her campaign, was working tirelessly along with John Podesta, and the Podesta brothers are a whole thing of their own. I'm not even going to go into it here, but there you go. Anthony Weiner, released from prison after serving 18 months for sexting a teenager. Yes, it was sexually explicit text, and as far as I remember, also images of himself. And you can go so much further. It's not just politics. It's also in the pharmaceutical and scientific research areas. So here's something that not a lot of people know. This guy, Dr. Carlton Gajdusek, I think I'm pronouncing it correctly, he's a Nobel Prize for all of his work and the Kuru thing. Not only, this is not alleged, by the way, he wasn't a P-word, allegedly. He was a self-proclaimed P-word. You know what I mean? Listen, there needs to be accountability of some sort, and for the Nobel Prize official website to have his biography here written by himself, or at least a ghostwriter, talking about all of the accomplishments and not one mention of his darker side. I mean, died on December 12th, 2008, but yeah, let's not mention all the child molesting. Oddly enough, if you go to Wikipedia, it does talk about the child molestation convictions. Wikipedia. I mean, the Nobel Prize website doesn't say it, but Wikipedia does. How weird is that? It's ridiculous. Okay, it's ridiculous. This is so pervasive, and this happened so often. It's ridiculous, the idea to think that the people surrounding the issue weren't aware that these things were going on. Just like Jeffrey Epstein, the most prolific P-word guy in the Western world ever, as far as we know at least. Let's say in the last century. Let's just say in the last century. But it's not just politics, it's entertainment, it's scientific research, it's everywhere. And the idea that people don't know about this is ridiculous. This guy says, Carlton Gajdusek says, he says it himself. He was interviewed and he said it himself, that the amount of kids that he molested was enormous. And his colleagues they also admit that they were aware of that after the fact. Come on, after the fact, a Nobel Prize winner that you work with. Anyway, the point of this video isn't to go on about this extremely nefarious problem that we have in high society. I use high in a sarcastic way. But it's to talk about the possibility of us creating a new Hollywood. And we can do it. I know that we can. I just don't know how. And this is where I enlist you guys to help me figure out what is it that we can do. This is what I know. I know that I want to go back to a Hollywood that had inspiration, that was magical. I want to go back to a Hollywood where you watched movies and you left the movie theater inspired with a new perspective on the world in your life. Look at all of these shots, man. This, by the way, I took this from a YouTube video that I sometimes go back and watch, because sometimes I just seem to be reminded of how awesome cinema is. And there's this compilation. I'll leave the link down below, but you can search it yourself. It's called The Most Beautiful Shots in Movie History, as you can see here. And I don't know if I completely agree with what it sets out to do and what it accomplishes, but god damn it, these are some beautiful shots and stories. And I've watched every single one of these, and I couldn't be happier, man. When I watch these movies, whether you're a kid or an adult, it's just awesome. We can do so many great things in this medium. We can tell such great stories in such a fun and interesting way. The hero of American Beauty, man. Of course, A Space Odyssey and The Budapest Hotel and The Shining, and I mean, it's relentless. This medium is relentlessly beautiful, and I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to a time when all he wanted was to inspire people, or at least tell stories that were greater than life, gave people a chance for escapism and wonderment, and tell them, you know, you're not alone. When you watch these movies, that's what happens. You get a sense that you are not alone in your struggles, in your dreams, in your accomplishments. When you look to the horizon, you want to reach something that no one has ever reached for. It's your story, and you're not alone. We're all trying to build our own stories, individually and with the help of others. And so I plead with you guys and gals, come on. What do you say about building a new Hollywood? We need it. It doesn't even have to be in Hollywood. But that used to be a magical place. People flocked to it for a reason, because they were dreamers. And they were just guided by this sense of ability, talent, whatever you want to call it. These stories are true, and they're still happening today. Why not you, me, and everybody who's interested in building this great thing that we can build? Tell them, hey, there is a safe harbor for your dreams. Come here and we'll help you accomplish it. God damn it, wouldn't that be a wonderful world to live in? Well, it's within reach. And with this hopeful sigh, I bow out. Thank you for stopping by today. I hope I was able to inspire you just as I hoped I could. And you, please inspire me with your thoughts. And remember, you're always welcome at the Den. See you next time.